The cicadas had gone silent before dusk, and that silence pressed against the hills like a suffocating blanket. Fog rose from the hollows and curled around the cabins, settling low and thick, swallowing the sound of boots on dirt, even the trickle of the creek. Appalachia, 1864, already a land steeped in hunger, war, and suspicion, felt heavier than ever that autumn. The cabins sagged under the weight of it, chimneys coughing only the weakest threads of smoke, doors bolted against the damp night. Mary Ellen's lantern threw a thin yellow glow against the fog as she walked. Her belly swelled beneath her dress, round and undeniable. 15 years old, and already carrying a burden she could not explain. No husband, no suitor, not even a whispered accusation of a boy sneaking into her bed. Her pregnancy had appeared like a storm cloud over the town, sudden and dark, and no one claimed responsibility. No one claimed her. At first, the women whispered, then the men scowled, then the preacher looked away when she passed. The town did not spit at her, did not shout, but worse, they shut their doors. Every cabin she passed tonight was dark, every shutter latched tight. She imagined eyes behind the wood, watching her, judging. She pulled her shawl close, though the damp cold sank through. Her feet sank into the mud as she hurried toward the edge of town. Her Aunt Esther's cabin sat against the forest line, half swallowed by black pines. Mary Ellen's breath misted in the lantern glow as she knocked, but before her fist struck twice, the door creaked open. Esther stood there, hunched, sharp-eyed even in shadow. "You hear it yet?" Esther whispered. Mary Ellen blinked. "Hear what?" "The child calling. They always call before they come." Mary Ellen stepped inside quickly. The cabin smelled of herbs and smoke, sharp and bitter. Esther bolted the door. Her muttered words were part scripture, part something far older, a language that made Mary Ellen's neck prickle. The lantern sputtered, the fire popped. For nights Mary Ellen had dreamed of muffled crying, sounds that weren't quite human, bubbling up from beneath the floorboards. In corners where light did not reach, shadows seemed to move. Sometimes, when she placed a hand on her belly, she thought she felt fingers pressing back. She never confessed these things, but Esther always seemed to know. "You'll stay here," Esther said, eyes on the dark window. "It's safer than out there, safer than with them." Mary Ellen swallowed. "Them, the kin that never left the hills," Esther murmured. "Blood don't die, girl. It rots. It waits." Mary Ellen rarely left the cabin, not since the fog thickened and the townsfolk began to linger at a distance watching. From the window she sometimes saw men standing far down the path, axes hanging loose in their hands, women clutching children tight against their skirts. They never spoke, never came closer, but they stood, waiting, as though she carried something they already knew. When she dared to step outside, she saw children near the tree line. Not the town's children, but pale strangers, too thin, with eyes too wide for their faces. They stood barefoot in the frost, watching her, lips moving as though whispering, though she heard no sound. When she blinked, they vanished. But later she found small footprints pressed into the mud outside the cabin, dozens of them circling, too many to count. The baby's movements grew stranger, not sharp kicks but long, deliberate stretches, crawling along her ribs, dragging itself inside her. Sometimes she swore she felt breath against her skin, as if lungs pressed right beneath her flesh. More than once she woke in the night to the sensation of fingers curling against the inside of her belly, testing the seams. The animals sensed it too. A dog howled one night until its voice broke. By morning it lay stiff near the cabin, eyes open, no wound upon it. Once a bird fell dead onto the porch, its body torn open but no blood spilled. Esther collected its bones in silence and threw them into the fire. "Bad blood," Esther muttered as she ground herbs into a bowl. "The hill's been feeding it too long. What grows in you now ain't new. It's old, come back." Mary Ellen wanted to deny it, wanted to believe her child was hers alone. But when she closed her eyes at night, she saw the hills rising like black waves, roots tangled with bones, and voices beneath the earth whispering her name. Winter crept early. Frost bit at the windows. The fog no longer lifted even at noon. Mary Ellen sat near the fire, shawl wrapped tight, belly hard beneath her palms. Esther moved like a shadow through the cabin, her muttering constant. "You know about the Mathers, the Crakes?" Esther asked one evening without looking up from her herbs. Mary Ellen shook her head. "They married too close, cousins to cousins, brothers to sisters. Their children were born wrong, some stillborn, some twisted, but some lived and kept breeding. The lines knotted and knotted till no one could tell where one family ended and another began. Blood so thick it don't wash clean. Those kin live deeper in the woods now, waiting." Mary Ellen's throat went dry. "What's that got to do with me?" Esther looked up sharply, eyes glinting. "Your ma came from them hills. Nobody liked to speak it, but I remember. You think this belly come out of nowhere. Blood remembers. Blood comes calling." Mary Ellen shook her head hard, but the words sank into her chest like stones. She thought of her mother's silence, her sudden death, the way townsfolk had always glanced at Mary Ellen too long. Maybe they had known all along. Maybe they had been waiting for this. That night she dreamed again of the black trees, taller than the sky, their roots pulled tight with bones, and in those roots, faces pressed against the earth, whispering. She saw children with too many eyes, mouths too wide, crawling up the trunks toward her. When she woke, the sheets were damp with sweat, and her belly was moving, rolling beneath her skin, as if the baby inside were laughing. The pain came with no warning, sharp at first, then deep and tearing. Mary Ellen clutched the bed frame, her breath ragged, sweat pouring down her face. Esther rushed, boiling water, heating the blade, muttering prayers so fast they tangled in her throat. The cries came again, muffled and wet, not from Mary Ellen's lips but from her belly. The sound gurgled like water pushing through rotten wood, bubbling up from the earth. The lanterns flickered, the shadows leaned close. Hours dragged like centuries. Mary Ellen screamed until her voice broke, until her throat bled. Blood stained the sheets. Her body stretched beyond what seemed possible, the baby refusing to come. Esther cursed, sweat on her brow, her hands trembling. The air grew heavy, thick with iron and damp, and then, at last, something slid free. A sound filled the cabin, not a baby's cry, but a sucking laugh, wet and wrong. Esther's face went white. In her hands was a child, but not a child. Its limbs too long, its joints bent wrong, its skin pale and stretched, veins black and throbbing beneath, eyes wide open already, sharp, aware, and then it smiled, a crooked grin, teeth small but too many. Mary Ellen reached for it, despite herself, despite the terror rising in her throat. The baby gripped her finger, iron strong, cold seeping into her bones. She gasped at the chill, but did not pull away. "It's not yours," Esther whispered, voice shaking. "Never was." The shutters banged. The door bowed inward. From outside came the stench of damp rot and earth long buried. Shadows shifted in the fog. Esther screamed prayers. The baby's smile widened. Its lips did not move, but a whisper filled the cabin. "Family." The door cracked. Figures loomed in the fog, tall and bent, faces hidden in shadow. They stepped into the cabin, moving like kin returning home. Their mouths opened, and the same chorus Mary Ellen had heard in her dreams poured forth. "Blood. Claim. Ours." Mary Ellen clutched the baby tighter, but her strength drained, her blood pulling toward them, answering their call. Her breath synced with theirs, her vision blurred. Esther tried to fight, swinging the heated blade, screaming words old as the hills. But the shadows twisted, snatched it from her hand. She stumbled back, falling against the wall, her prayers choking into silence. The baby writhed, its smile splitting wider, eyes never leaving Mary Ellen's face. She felt her body unraveling, every vein pulled into the chorus, every thought dissolving. She wanted to resist, but the whispers grew louder. "You were never alone. You were never yours. You are ours." Her tears blurred the child's face, until it became only teeth and eyes. She tried to say its name, though she had never given it one, but her lips only echoed the word the chorus demanded: family. The lantern went black. Morning came. The fog still hung low. The town gathered outside Esther's cabin, uneasy. No smoke rose from the chimney. No sound came from within. They opened the door. The cabin was empty. No Mary Ellen. No Esther. The bed torn. The fire dead. Only a cradle sat in the corner, rocking though no wind stirred. In the dirt floor beside it was a single handprint burned deep, too small to be human, the edges still smoldering faintly. In the weeks that followed, children vanished from their beds. Livestock were found hollow, skins left behind like discarded clothes. The fog lingered longer, pressing against windows, seeping beneath doors. The townsfolk stopped whispering Mary Ellen's name, but when night fell, they locked their shutters tighter and prayed louder. Some swore they saw her at the tree line when dusk came, a girl with hollow eyes, cradling a pale child that smiled with too many teeth. They said she whispered from the dark, promising family, promising blood, and the silence of the hills never lifted. The town changed after that night, though no one spoke of it in open daylight. It began with whispers, always whispers, that Mary Ellen had been taken by the woods, that Esther had been punished for harboring her, that the devil had claimed what belonged to him. But whispers were safer than truth, because the truth was too heavy to name. The men sharpened axes more often, even when no trees needed felling. The women scrubbed their children raw, soaped burning skin until it peeled, muttering that filth drew evil in. The preacher thundered louder on Sundays, spittle wetting the front row as he screamed about unholy unions and the wages of sin. But no amount of preaching lifted the fog. It thickened,
hung low even at noon, rolling down into the town like a slow tide. It seeped beneath doors, curled under quilts, pressed against lungs until every breath tasted of wet stone. The townsfolk stopped traveling far. They stopped sending children alone to the well. At night, every shutter was bolted, every hearth burned too hot, though the heat could not cut the damp. Then came the vanishings. The miller boy, barely 8, slipped out to fetch kindling and never returned. His mother swore she heard laughter, low, bubbling laughter, just before the silence fell. They found his footprints leading into the fog, but none leading back. 2 nights later, goats were found behind the Weller barn, skins collapsed like sacks, no blood, no meat, no bone, just skin, flapping in the breeze, and always, just at the tree line, shapes, thin, crooked, standing too still, watching. Some said they saw Mary Ellen among them, her shawl ragged, hair hanging wet, the child pressed against her chest. They said she looked older, not in years but in something heavier, hollowed out, eyes black as the fog itself. The child, no, the thing she carried, never moved, yet its teeth gleamed in every telling, a smile too wide, too certain. The townsfolk grew desperate. They spoke of burning the woods, of leaving the valley altogether. But fear kept them rooted, fear and pride. To admit defeat to the hills was to admit the hills had always owned them. One man, Caleb Horn, swore he would find the truth. He was young, broad-shouldered, angry enough to believe anger could protect him. One fog-thick night, he took his father's rifle and walked into the trees. His wife begged, his children cried, but Caleb only spat. "If no one else will fight, then I'll do it." The town waited. Hours passed. The fog swallowed sound, but once, near midnight, they thought they heard gunfire. Then a scream, then silence. At dawn, the men went searching. They found Caleb's rifle leaning against a tree, barrel bent as though twisted by hand. Beside it, the dirt bore drag marks, deep and clawed, leading into the hollow where no light reached. They did not follow. They did not speak of it again. Esther's cabin, though abandoned, became a place no one neared. Children dared each other to creep close, but none stayed long. The cradle still rocked, they said, though no wind touched it. Some swore they heard a baby's laughter drifting from within, though it was thick and gurgling, like something choking on river mud. Fear spread faster than plague. Families began carving strange symbols into their doors, marks older than scripture, hoping to keep whatever lingered outside. At night, more than one house heard scratching along the shutters, soft at first, then sharp, as though claws sought a way inside. Mothers pressed hands over children's mouths to keep them silent. Fathers gripped axes and prayed they would not have to use them. But the hills remembered. Blood remembered, and Mary Ellen's child, born of silence and whispers, was no longer confined to Esther's cabin. It walked. By spring, the town was half empty. Some had fled under cover of darkness, their wagons creaking down the valley road, never to be seen again. Those who remained grew hollow-eyed, their skin gray from too many nights without sleep. Hunger gnawed. The war to the east had already left food scarce, but worse than hunger was dread. The fog never lifted. The trees never stopped leaning closer, and always, from the forest edge came the sound of something breathing. It was the preacher who broke first. He thundered in the square one morning, voice raw, declaring they must cleanse their land of the corruption that festered in it. He spoke of fire, of sacrifice, of cutting out rot before it spread. His eyes burned fever bright. Some nodded, others turned away. None dared call him wrong. That night, a group of men gathered torches and marched to the hollow. They did not tell their wives. They did not bless themselves. They walked into the fog, and the town listened for the crackle of flame, for the sound of trees burning. Instead came screams, long, tearing screams that carried too far, bending on the fog until no one could tell from which direction they came. Then laughter, not one voice, but many, layered, old and young, male and female, bubbling and choking and echoing together. Then silence. When dawn came, the men were gone. Their torches lay in the mud, unburned. The preacher was found in his pulpit the next day, his skin gray, his eyes wide and empty, his mouth stretched in a smile too wide, his teeth cracked from being forced open. His throat bubbled when they moved him, though no words came out. The town broke. Mothers gathered their children. Men packed wagons. By the end of the week, only a handful remained, too poor or too stubborn to leave. Those who stayed swore they saw Mary Ellen walking the streets at night. Her feet left no prints in the mud. Her eyes were hollow, her skin thin, as though stretched too tight over bone. In her arms she carried the child, and when it turned its face, its teeth gleamed in the moonlight. Sometimes its lips moved, though the words came not from its mouth but from the ground beneath their feet. Family, blood, ours, one by one, even the stubborn disappeared. Some cabins were found empty, meals still hot on the table. Others held only skins, folded neatly on beds, no bodies within. By summer, the town was a ghost. Weeds cracked through the paths, doors swung open in the wind, the well went dry, no smoke rose from any chimney. Travelers who passed through years later spoke of it with caution. They said the valley felt too quiet, that the fog lingered heavier there than anywhere else. Some claimed they saw a girl in the distance, shawl ragged, a pale child in her arms, both smiling, watching. None stayed the night, and the silence of the hills never lifted.